All right, good afternoon. This is Kathy from Brain Laird Books. I'm the founder of Brain Laird Books, an independent bookstore in South Bend, Indiana. Our mission is to develop empathy and build community centered around the discussion of inclusive books. We actively seek to purchase and promote authors and vendors from traditionally marginalized communities with an emphasis on Black, Indigenous, Asian, Latinx, and other Black and Brown authors, as well as authors who identify as LGBTQ and authors associated with the disability community. Ideally, we bring light to authors at the intersection of all of these identities. With me today are the author and illustrator of S.O.N.G.B.I.R.D, just released, wonderful picture book. Can't wait till everybody sees it. Get your hands on the copy. We have a few left if you want to get some here. I'll introduce them. First, we have Theresa. Raise your hand. Theresa the Songbird. Theresa is a musical, lyrical, and theatrical alchemist, sprinkling magic like hot sauce. She is best known for her appearance on the 2019 Trumpet Awards on Bounce TV, and now viral recitation of You So Black, which has garnered 11 million views and counting. She has gone on to perform with the likes of Jill Scott, MC Lyte, and Jasmine Sullivan, and she appears on famed pianist Robert Glasper's newest album. She's from the south suburbs of Chicago. Also, I'm from the south side of Chicago, but she now calls Atlanta home, and she holds a degree in commercial music from Millikan and Decatur. London Ladd is a graduate. London, raise your hand. I'm sure they know it's you. Process of elimination. Can't be me, can't be Theresa, must be you. He's a graduate of Syracuse University with an MFA in illustration. He uses a unique mixed media approach combining cut paper, textured with acrylic paint, tissue paper, and colored pencil to bring his diverse subjects to life. His artwork is steeped in intensity and emotion, a reflection of the artist himself. His hope is that You So Black will be passed down through generations, reaffirming African American strength, beauty, power, and love. His goal is to open a visual arts community center where lower income families can create their own art. London lives in Syracuse, New York. And we're going to talk to you guys in a minute. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page with our code of conduct. So I'm just going to read that really quickly to make sure we all agree with what we're doing here today. At Brain Laird Books, we aim to build a stronger community centered around the discussion of inclusive literature. Our goal is to create an environment where traditionally minoritized voices feel welcome to participate, speak up, ask questions, and engage in conversation. This requires a harassment-free and inclusive environment that recognizes the worth of every participant. We invite all those who participate to help us create safe and positive experiences for everyone. All right. So what I thought we could do is, Theresa, if we could have you read, and London, if you wanted to share some pictures, and then we'll kind of go through a little bit about the matching of the books and the pictures, and a couple of other questions that I had for you. Is that good?
Okay.
All right, whenever you're ready.
You So Black by Theresa the Songbird, illustrated by London Ladd. You so black. You so black. When you smile, the stars come out. You so black. When you born, the God come out. Black is not. Black when it's wrong, black when it's right. Black is pyramids in mathematics. Black is melanized and magic. Black with privilege. Black with pride. Black on purpose on the black hand side. Black and beautiful. Black and blessed. Black and so much more. Black and nothing less. Black is brilliant. Black is strong. Black is resilient. Black is song. Black is infinite, like hip hop or space. Black is grace. Black is love. Black makes babies. Black babies grow up. Black is tough. Black is hard to do. Black is me. Black is you. Black is not something that we get to choose, but it is something we get to cherish. It's something we get to wear with honor. I'm Black like my granddaddy and my great-great-great-grandmama. Black is lift every voice and sing. Black is letting your freedom ring and resound. Black is adjective, adverb, color, and noun. Black is crown. Black is clean. So, to the Black as all everlasting, to the Black and passing, and to every shade of Black in between. You so Black. You so Black. When you smile, the stars come out. You so Black. When you're born, the God comes out.
That was amazing. I didn't feel like you were hamming it up. That was pretty good. I enjoyed it. So first, Theresa, talk to me about the poem and the book is slightly different. What happened there? Why did you decide to add, it looks like, some words to this?
Well, the original conception of this poem is in a self-published book of mine. And the original conception of this poem is long because I'm a ham. It's very, very long. And it's also got some concepts that I think are a little more structurally just difficult and intricate that I'm not sure are really prepared for the demographic that we're shooting for with the children's book. And then some of the words in terms of the difference from the poem that everyone saw in the YouTube versus where we are now is just words that really can be understood by the age group. And also making sure we had enough space to fit on what was going to go on every page. You know what I mean? There's only so many pages you could fill up. London would still be drawing and illustrating now if we had to do every single line of my poem. We would have to do it in volumes.
You so Black one, you still so Black. Now you're really, really Black.
Did you know? If you turn around in 2 circles, you still Black.
You still Black.
That's the next one. You still Black. Right. It's a lot.
I'll be looking forward to that one too. Looking at your self-published book, what is your history as being a poet? Did you always want to be a poet? I know you say you're a ham. How did you get here?
I have been writing poetry since I was about 14 years old. When I was 18, my senior year of high school, my English teacher finally got me to commit to being on the forensics team, which is, if you don't know what forensics is, then it is, it's like a sport for actors. It's like a sport for actors. There are like 14 events that you can participate in. Some of them are like dramatic duet acting where you and a partner do like a dramatic reading from a scene. Some of them are monologues. Some of them are writing your own comedy skit where you play multiple characters. I was a verse reader, which is poetry reading. And I didn't know how good I was. I only did it for a year, but in the year I did it, I became the state champion in poetry reading. And for me, that was like God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, saying, here is your path, now go. Because I'd already been writing my own stuff, but that was like confirmation. Like, not only are you good, you are probably the best, one of the best.
I love it.
So move in that. And that was kind of like, once I went to college, everybody knew I was Theresa the poet. I was the only freshman to be not only on, but I was the president of a club on campus my freshman year of the Poetry Society.
Wow.
And I stayed the president all 4 years that I was on campus.
That's amazing. That's fantastic.
So I knew that, God kind of put it down in me early. And I just, like, the confirmation of being on the right path just kept feeding the ham.
I love it. I love it. London, how did you first hear about this? Did you hear the poem before you found out about the book? How did that work for you?
Deneen, when I was in grad school in 2020, I had posted some work that I had done in one of my classes, which was a Langston Hughes series of poetry. Um, he did My People, he did Mother to Son, he did, I did a bunch of them for a class project. Instead of doing a children's book, I wanted to do something different and really push myself to do poetry, because the one thing I love about poetry is that you to really be able to capture the energy of and the life of the poem or the poet themselves. So working with the Langston Hughes poems, it was something that I just really immersed myself into, and really wanting to do my work to that would be more colorful. Because my previous life of an illustrator, I did a lot of the civils. It was all civil rights, civil war. It was something that was really draining on me, and the colors were very limited. It's always dour. It's not, you can only go so far, and I got pigeonholed. So that's why I went to grad school, and to be able to kind of really conceptualize and really do things that are more symbolic, more expressive of me, what I do in my sketchbooks, what I do practicing. So I started to post that, and then that caught the attention of Deneen because we had history. She was the ghostwriter for one of my early books. Um, I was the first book that she ghost wrote, children's book. I was the illustrator. So back in 2007. So, we kind of just splintered off and lived our lives. And here she is with an imprint and kind of doing her thing. And then I get a message on Instagram like, what is this? And I just said, I had her call me. We talked a little bit about the work, and then a little like weeks later, that's when she said, like, I want you to look at this. And I was like, wow, whoa. Just Theresa's energy, the everything that she spoke in that award show was exactly what my vision quest was through grad school to be. Because when you go to school, especially as an undergrad, they want you, as an illustrator, they want you to kind of study a little of everything and be diverse. But everything always came back to, like, my passion was painting, illustrating Black life. Whether it was portraits that I did a lot of, figurative stuff. So, this book was just meant to be. And I'm very fortunate because the book, being involved with this, and there was no doubt of saying yes. It was just, when are we starting? And really waiting for all the paperwork and all the ink to dry and everything to really say, okay, let's get going. And this project made such an impact because for my thesis, I built it around Blackness and representation, and they were like my thesis, my grad school, who I am, was really validated, that I felt, by this book and my grad studies and what I studied as a thesis with 7,000 words of just writing and doing images for. So yeah, I just love this book, and I'm just so grateful that Theresa said yes to wanting it illustrated.
I love that. I love that for both of you. It's hard nowadays, right, to be Black. It's just these past few years has been difficult. And I was just talking to my staff, and we were talking about there's the first Black mayor in the town over from us, and how it's 2023 and we're having our first Black anything. Like, and we're supposed to celebrate that. And it's so difficult. And it's nice to find a book that just says, you so Black. Like, and it's not a bad thing. Cherish this idea of your Blackness. There is nothing wrong with it, right? There's nothing different. It's great. And so I love how you both got there by focusing. You found your passion, and then you found each other. And I love Deneen Milner's work. Like, she's always has great books that she puts out. I love hers. All right. So let's talk a little bit about your book. You said that is about the dozens. And I asked a couple of my staff members if they know what the dozens was. And I had to explain it to them, but they said they know it as Yo Mama joke. So they do
Yes.
know what that is, but not the dozens itself. And they also call it roasting. What made you decide to do this? What made you decide, let's reclaim You So Black. Let's reclaim this.
Well, okay, kind of like to start where you were just speaking about, like this whole idea of walking around in your blackness, and as you are perceived to be something negative just because of this, right? And that was my initial like jolt, is how to reprogram us, the carriers of this blackness, so that when we are constantly, while this is being weaponized against us, how do I take the power back in that, right? And then looking at the origin of roasting and the dozens and You So Black and Your Mama jokes. And they come from slave era. They come from slaves being on the auction block and us trying to keep the price low, us trying to keep ourselves from being sold to certain people. By when you got up on the block, oh, you don't want him, he's so lazy, he couldn't do such and such and such and stuff. Oh, you don't want her mama sold this, that, and other. It's such a divisive idea, this You So Black, but it was truly born out of our desire to love and hold on to and keep each other. Most of the time when you hear You So Black and Your Mama and Jones and all of that comes from somebody in your family. You start joning with somebody who cares about you. It's never coming from love. An enemy. It always comes from a place, an environment of love. I've never heard, like, the very first time you hear it, that's where it comes from. So that is where the soil for me that You So Black was birthed from. And then also understanding there is this sentiment when you hear it, like, it makes you want to make you ready to fight sometimes, you know, and we should love it. This blackness is everything. Ooh, it's everything. They wouldn't hate it like they hate it if it wasn't to be great. You know what I mean? They wouldn't weaponize it so if it wasn't so powerful.
Agreed.
And that
100%.
is the sentiment I wanted to bring in this poem. And I'm grateful that even from the pages long, 6-7 minute long version of the poem to the 2-minute version to the children's book, that the sentiment is still there.
I just think about a few years ago, we probably couldn't get a book published in You So Black, and then with Black kids on the cover, like, that are fully Black. And speaking of the cover, that cover is gorgeous. That cover is gorgeous. That cover is gorgeous. I love the stars. I love all of that. And I looked at Black Gold as well, with all the stars and everything. And I wanted to ask you, London, how did you come up with this conceptualization? I know you do acrylics, and I know you do tissue paper, but how did you come up with the pictures to match and to celebrate the blackness that Theresa had on the page?
Just listening to her over and over, you know, what I did is I downloaded the YouTube to an MP3 and just put on my soundproofed headphones, noise canceling, and just listened and listened and listened. You know, I must have had the thing on repeat for over 100 times easily, conservatively, just to really, you know, kind of really immerse, because when she performed that, you can tell that that was just very out of body that she was performing. She was in a different plane, and it was something that was coming that was so emotive. It was something that was visceral. Every big word that you can think of, multi-syllable word, that it was coming from, and it spoke to me. And it's like you have to feel it. I've done stuff in the projects that I thought that before I went to grad school, before I started kind of working in the way that I'm working now, I thought I was really immersed into a project, you know, dressing up like, you know, certain historical figures and doing certain things and travel. with this, like I've traveled to places to research, but this one I didn't have to really research and travel far. I just, my community around me, the poem, and just really figuring out why, asking questions, why brilliance, why love, and in just such deep appreciation. And that's the thing that really filled me, you know, like with the cover, with the stars in the sky, even though it's, you know, you could say like with Black Gold, it's very similar with a child and universe, but it's different because this is, you know, a child looking up in like in wonder. Like I imagine my daughter, she's 27 now, but I know that age. I remember her being together with her and knowing when we can just sit and look at the stars in the sky and wonder, and the beauty that's inside her as much as it is out there. So you know, the artwork, it's so hard with these projects because you do them so, like this has been out for over like almost a year. I finished the artwork, and to really think about the place that I was, it was like when you do a project, it's very, you're so invested into it. And with this one, it was like I just everything that I did was just like very spiritual based, very instinctual. Like the pyramid page. When you look at the pyramid page, like I love the cover because of the fact that like there was a purpose for the purple that was around, the royalty that they are. Like, you know, within the blackness, like there's beauty and royalty and just the shine. Like when I like the pyramid page, like that was a hard page because it was like, yeah, that page was so hard because how do you convey that? But it took a dream for that to kind of come to fruition. And those colors that you see there, they don't make sense. They don't, but they do to me in a way that, you know, that the way the pyramid is just resting right there, the way the hieroglyphics are on there, the way, you know, the face is just peering off, you know, the different colors and shapes. They just speak, and the textures and the depth of color. Like even with the Obama page, there was a purpose that I wanted like all this black around them. There was a reason for that. That's why you don't see much detail. They're just a shape within. So really kind of understanding and looking at Theresa's words, you know, privilege and pride. I remember that day in 2009 about Obama. You know, even with this page with beautiful and that was so easy for me because I knew I wanted a lineup of women, black women, shapes, sizes, ages, you know, colors, attitude. I wanted, you know, for all black women to see themselves in there, young and old. That was the point of that. You know, so I just can talk about this book for days. You know, me and Theresa probably can go on like a long. We can do a 24-hour marathon just talking about this book. As much as I get inspired hearing her, like she fuels me to like, oh God, you know, I'm so happy that the depth of the words to her match the depth of words visually represented for me.
It seems like such a great match. I mean, you both have similar ideas of what you're doing. It was just such a great match. And that you explaining why you picked this, and I had wrote down to ask you about the body sizes and colors because I thought you did such a great job with that, with portraying like we're not just a monolith. Like you showed that in this book too. And that kind of brings me to something a little bit off topic, but it's the idea that we still need to have Black History Month, right? And so this is like a great book to have for Black History Month because basically we only learn about two people that we've learned about for hundreds of thousands of years. It seems like it's like those same people. And so bringing in this and bringing in more idea of what this looks like. So how do you feel about that? How do you feel about the idea that we still have Black History Month? Can we do something better with it? How do we get people to understand what it means? And that Black history is just history.
Yeah.
Well, part of the thing when it comes to history is that history is written by the winners. Long pregnant pause. And because history is written by the winners, we have to be champions internally. You know what I mean? And I think that is where U.S.O.N.G.B.I.R.D is influential in terms of giving children the seed of championship within themselves. And as you think highly of you, you go seeking out proof of that. You go seeking out the history of that, the words. Even when you, as a teacher, to read to a class, Black is pyramids and mathematics. What does she mean? Teacher, what does she mean? Black is mathematics. Well, class, if you want to look back at Egypt, if you want to look back at, you know what I'm saying? It gives the opportunity for inroads of further exploration of Blackness in history without being too critical of what has been or what could be. It just leaves it open for you to go and find what you can. I think all history matters. I would not be who I was if I did not come from very Black, excellent, Black educated women. My grandmother was an elementary school principal. My mother was the valedictorian of her high school class. When the first books I read were comic books that had actual Black leaders instead of superheroes. So I was reading comic books about Nat Turner, comic books about Harriet Tubman. That was my first introduction to literature. And for me, I feel like Black history matters because it gives you a bolster when the world around you is continually trying to weaponize what you are against you. It reminds you that there are champions amongst your ancestors, amongst your echelon, and you have to match that energy. You are born of that same good stuff.
Mm.
So I think it definitely matters. I'm grateful that the book is out. I hope that it continues to have a place in Black history, in all history. Mm-hmm. I really do hope that it continues to have that place.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because when I went back to grad school, like the last book that I did in 2017 was a slave era book, and I was just like, okay, I can't do this. There's got to be more that we can represent out there in literary form. I don't judge anybody who wants to do this kind of work. You know, there's stories to tell, but at this juncture in my life, when I told my agent, I was like, okay, there's my boundaries now. I have certain boundaries. And I was like, you know, if I have, you know, there's one book that's coming out that has a slave scene in it, but that's to the extent. But if there's projects that I have to, you know, that I've been presented like, you know, Civil War era projects, and it's like, no, I can't, because I want to tell stories in the now, because this is the reality that we're in right now. And I respect the past, and I do love the rich history. I love the African American inventors and creators and writers and politicians, people who laid the foundation, and they are there. But for the youth, I think it's, for African American Black youth, it's important to see themselves now and understand, again, with U.S.O.N.G.B.I.R.D, understanding that what they look like now, how they sound now, how they act now, is they are the living embodiment of history. They're walking history right now, because pretty soon, 2, 3, 4 years, in the next generation, they're going to be their own historical figures for their families, for their friends. And that's why I said with this book, I wanted to be something that's a legacy book. I want this book to, that's why, I mean, I put Obama in there and I put the King Memorial. That's just to the extent that I would put, but I want books like this book that it won't be dated. It has to last and it has to matter, because that's where I'm at right now. That's what I mean. I do a lot, like that's what moves my spirit, and it's the stuff that gets me the most excited. So you know, I think for Black History Month, it's great, and I think that this book is gonna. I really believe this book is gonna open up like eyes of a lot of people who have decision-making powers in the industry to be like, okay, we gotta do. There's more. It was like when Crown came out. All of a sudden, oh, they like haircuts. Wow! And all of a sudden, now a few years later, now there's like Fresh Cut and all these great books.
Cool cuts, all of that. Yes.
So now
hair this and hair that.
Yeah. So yeah, and I'm doing a hair book. Forgive me, I am doing a hair book, but it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be awesome. But I'm believing that Theresa and what she wrote and what we did is a forerunner for great things to come. We're gonna see it in another 1 or 2 or 3 years. We're gonna see like the same. They're gonna be searching out. I know you're gonna be. I know, Theresa, they've been probably going to you about what else you got. What else you got? What else you got? Good for you. Good for you. Good for you. I'm happy because
the pockets are deep, my friend.
Good, because that's
you
what
got to ride the moment. Like while we're here, you gotta be ready for it.
Yeah, you have to be prepared.
Yeah, and I'm so happy because the thing is, these are the voices that need to be heard.
Yes, 100%. I like what you said, you know, Black present, you know, as opposed to Black history. And then Theresa said Blackness in history, as opposed to Black history. It's Blackness in history. I love that. And that means it can also go forward. It's also Blackness in the future and Blackness in the present. It's not a sack thing, like you said. It's not the Civil War. It's not this. It's all of that, and it's today, and it's tomorrow. It's all of that. I love that. And speaking of the Black future, talk to me a little bit about what you want to do, Theresa. You talked about bringing art to youth. I'd love for you to discuss that a little bit more. And London, about the community center that you envision for what you want to do as well.
Well, presently, let's talk about actively and then the wish list, right? So actively, I am always visiting schools, talking with the youth, you know, especially like young girls. Oh, I have so much fun with them. Black kids are waiting for someone to talk to them like they matter on their level. And I enjoy that. I do a lot of stuff with like the high school level in terms of public speaking, just teaching people how to tap into themselves and be comfortable talking in a room of folks. I do a lot of coaching of like performance and the same kind of coaches that I had when I was getting ready to do forensics and speech team. I'm doing that for a lot of young actors and young artists making their way in the world where Theresa has all the money to do all the things that she wants to do. It will probably be, because I live in Atlanta, I would like to see something similar to a Juilliard here. I think that there is room for that. I think that all of the Black intelligent artists that live here could totally populate a school of professors to teach music, art, television, videography, and that Atlanta could be just as much of a mecca for higher education in art as New York and LA are. That would be my dream. Theresa's School of Arts.
So I have a proposition for you after this about your voice and doing that. Because I wrote a grant. It's a small grant, but we're doing this. It's called Telling Your Story. Like I want kids to be able to tell their story. And we're using your book. I get to give each kid a copy of this book because I want them to see how you can take these words and make them into into this, and this is what your story can look like. So we're doing it through poetry, we're doing it through art, we're doing it through narrative. So it's 3 little workshops. So I'm going to be talking to you because part of what I want them to do is write some poetry about themselves and then be able to speak it, be able to do some public speaking with it. So you too, look for some emails of how we can work together while I have the money to work with you. It's like, I would love that. So that's perfect. I wrote it all down. Like, okay, coaching, public speaking. I don't know about a Juilliard in Atlanta, but man, can you freaking imagine that?
That would be amazing. I can absolutely imagine it. Every time I drive past Morris Brown, I imagine it. Especially when it was closed. All I could think was, I don't understand why JD and all of the other producers in Atlanta haven't got T.I. and Killer Mike. I don't understand why they haven't gotten together and figured out that this is it. This is it. Bring your musicians here. Bring your artists here. Bring your graphic designers here and let them blossom. But I digress.
But I think, well, no, you're not digressing. That's still part of what we're talking about. I think one thing, and I say this a lot, is we need to learn how to collaborate. We have been put in positions where we have to compete, because there can only be so many USO Black books. There can only be so many of these. And so that's what we've thought for so long, that it's hard for us to work together. And I think once we figure out that if we are doing this together, how much more elevation there could be, how much stronger we could be, that would be like a sea change that we have. If we could just come together around that, I think that would get us a Juilliard in Atlanta with a different name, though.
That's awesome.
Talk about your center and your vision, London.
Well, I think the genesis of mine, again, I'm like Theresa, I have practical and the dream. I guess because in 2018, I did murals for Martin Luther King and Frederick Douglass in the Syracuse area. They spoke. So I did murals that were near the poorest section of Syracuse. And the murals were, picked visuals of Douglass and King, but at the same time, they were talking to the organizer. We put actual quotes that were spoken by these men here in Syracuse. And, starting out, painting the mural, like putting up the drawing, and at first there was a few people in the community that they just were against it. They didn't understand it. They weren't feeling it. They were like, and this is like, during the, there's a lot of unrest, within African American communities with, police and just, social justice is, just a lot going on. So I remember my first day, there was a guy that came over and he was just like, why, we don't need Martin Luther King. We don't need that. We need other thing. And he was getting so tense and balling up his fist. And I'm like, oh, good. Am I going to get hit here? But no, he was just frustrated. And then I talked to him and I showed him the sketches and I said, just give it time. And then it took 6 weeks to do this mural. And he came by every few days and he was just one of my biggest champions. And he got it. And the community itself really started to, getting a lot of great feedback. They take something that was visually it was a rundown wall. There were rundown walls, and turning it into something beautiful with art, and know that what you can unlock within your communities. And it really motivated me to be like, we should have I want a center down in these areas. We need these things because there's only so much bowling that we can do. There's only so much going to the mall or, there's other things that can be done. And like what Theresa said, it's, just a center, I want visual arts, but it would be great to have the performing arts. It would be great to have like just a wide range, but that's the big picture. But I think that experience. And then I remember I went to go, because I had done a Frederick Douglass book in 2018. It was the anniversary of his birthday, 200 years. And I remember I did a workshop where I had people drawing portraits of Douglass. I was teaching them. and it was supposed to be for kids, but I noticed that there were a lot of, families there, parents, grandparents. So I made everybody draw. And it was a great experience because you walk around and then, these grandkids never knew their grandma was an art drew when they were young, and they do these really nice pictures. And I was like, to do an art center for families, not just children, because there's plenty, once you say children, this is for the kids, it's like everybody rushes, but there's a lot of other people who need that kind of outlet as well. Like, we cannot forget the seniors, we cannot forget the middle age people, or the millennials. Everybody, I think, should have an opportunity, the option. I mean, if we have that paint and sip, and people go run into that paint and sip, you bring a little wine and it gets them in there to paint a tree or something. Why can't we just have something that's very communal and bringing people together? And the thing is, I even had a name. Because my name is London, I was like, somehow have legacy in it, because I wanted something that was like to take what I learned in grad school, the experiences that I've done artistically, and offer it to people who don't have that opportunity, who can't go to the university or for whatever circumstances. And just, nobody's asking you to be a published illustrator. Nobody's asking you to be in a museum. If you just could do something that you can hang up on the wall, and you can pass that down, a nice, beautiful picture or a book they create that's a keepsake for the family. So that, for me, that's the dream. That's what I want to do. And I know I'm building my career back from grad school, and I'm taking jobs and I'm doing things, but it's there. It will get done. It's just, I'm not. One thing about being 50 now is that I'm not impatient. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen the right way. And that means my cup runneth over or overfloweth. I don't know. Whatever you want to say, it will be in abundance. So, that's what I want, because there's only so much time we have. So we got to utilize it as best as we can.
I think when you hit that spot where you are doing the thing that you feel like you were meant to do, that's when that abundance comes, and you stop running away from it. You're like, no, not that, this. And also, like, London, you're talking about the older people. I think that goes back with what Theresa was saying. It's finding the champion within them, right? They probably don't even know that they could draw like that. They were probably not told that that's a job that you could actually have because you needed to make money, and this doesn't make money. And like, just kind of helping them remember, here's what you have inside of you, and let's show everybody else. I think that's super important. All right, so we got to wrap up soon. So first, though, I want to ask you who inspires you? Like, who has inspired you and the work that you're doing today?
Outside of the litany of Black writers, the Langston Hugheses, the Maya Angelou's, the Nikki Giovanni's, the Gwendolyn Brooks, the Bell Hooks, all of those. I'm also a huge, as a children's writer and as a childhood reader, I was a huge fan of Shel Silverstein. And in hindsight, I think that Shel Silverstein is probably the reason I lean into writing poetry so much. In terms of life, though, my biggest inspiration is my mom. She is, without a doubt, like, seeing me as, my mom is short, so seeing me is like seeing a giant version of her. Like, she's a lot of energy. She has this incomprehensible confidence. Even when she's wrong, she's so confident about being right. And I know that, like, all of that is here. And I carry that energy with me. And she's always told me one other thing too. Now, Theresa, right is right and wrong is wrong. And she says it just like that. You just got a little Joyce Wilson impersonation. But because she is so prominent in my life space, and she's put these values down in me, I can't, like, I wouldn't be writing poetry if it wasn't for my mom. I wouldn't be writing this kind of poetry if it wasn't for my mom. Because I was writing poems. I got to tell this story real fast, and I promise it won't take long. My mom, when you're 14, you write poems about wanting a boyfriend. Those are the only poems you write when you're 14. So my mama found my little poetry book about me wanting a boyfriend, and she got so mad. She was like, Theresa, I can't believe this is what you're writing about. And then she brought me some book that one of her college classmates had written. And I was like, whatever, Mom. But it was a book about Black empowerment, about self-love. Now look at me.
That's amazing.
Who was right? I can't wait to show her this interview so she could be like, now see, that's the end of my story.
Right is right.
Right.
How about you, London?
Oh goodness. Yeah, I think the same thing. There's so many outside of the art world. You know, obviously there's tons of artists all over the world. You know, with the Harlem Renaissance, it's easy to say that. You know, outside, and I'll just focus outside of the art world. I think for me, like obviously, one of my biggest influence or biggest inspiration is I know my daughter. You know, because I it's the greatest gift to have. You know, my daughter, as somebody who didn't have a dad. So to be a dad is a joy. It's the greatest gift that I have been given. So it's something I never took for lightly, never took for granted. I unconditional love for her, without a doubt. Anything that she needs, anything that I have, it's hers. So I know for her, I just work to make sure that she knows that she's loved and cared for, that that whatever man that goes into her life has a high standard and she should expect nothing but the best. And I think for the other one is my mom, who passed away, like 40 years ago. And for me, I love my mom, but at the time I loved her when she was alive, but after she had passed, and just to go through and see everything that she saved, and because she was 16 when she gave birth to me, and I did not understand, because I was always searching for my dad, didn't know who he was, and his name wasn't on the birth certificate, so I was just always, you get mad at your mom, you just be a knucklehead kid, and then a young 20-year in your 20s and not knowing. And then as you get older, I had more appreciation. But then when she passed, and just see photos that I never knew existed of me as a child, and seeing, what she did as a teen and in her 20s, and everything that she did for me, and what she did in the fact of like the moral compass that I have, the integrity that I walk in, the working hard to take care of those that you love. I think that that's the biggest thing. That's the thing that just drives me to make sure that, her passing wasn't in vain. It's gonna, I'm gonna keep working as hard as I can for her, for my daughter, for the people that I love, and for my fiance, everything, friends, people that I care, that I hold dear. Just push. That's my inspiration.
Awesome. I love that. Okay, so I just have two last questions for you. The first one will be, what are you working on next? And then the last one is, what do you hope people get from this book? What do you hope? What are your hopes for this? So what are you working on? What are your hopes?
Okay, so I have modified another one of my really popular poems into a shorter form to address, the thing I love most in the world, that Black girl magic. So I'm hoping that, once this goes well, that will be a possibility. And I've also written another children's book that I'm hoping will end up in the route of Netflix, Disney, that kind of route. It's still written in the poetic, like storytelling form, kind of similar to like Dr. Seuss. So I'm excited about that because it's really my story, like my personal childhood story, but told in a different sort of allegory. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm hoping that, I'm not hoping. I know God got it set the same way he had this whole process of this book set. I'm excited about that. And in terms of this book, I want to see it in every library. I want to see it in kindergarten classrooms across the globe. I want to see it internationally with, you know, little Black children in Europe, in Canada, in South America, and all over Africa and Asia. I think it has the room. I think it has the illustration. I think it has the heart to be a staple of literature for a long time.
Wow. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's see what I'm working on right now. Well, I'm still writing. I'm finishing up a draft of my own written book that I want to illustrate, but that gets pushed back because I'm currently working on My Hair as a Book. You know, about to start the final art for that, which I'm excited about. And I'm doing a couple other projects right now that I'm currently, you know, one about spirituals, which I'm really excited about because I did research for my thesis in regards to spirituals and W.E.B. Du Bois and this, you know, sorrow songs, and really understanding the depths of spirituals and how they are timeless to now, almost like the way this book is, like it's timeless. Like, you know, we don't have to have, you know, the old. It's just so relevant to right now. And then I'm doing one on a woman. I don't know if I can say it, but it was announced on Merle Evers. I'm sorry, goodness. Merle Evers Williams. I'm excited about that book because she's an amazing woman. You know, just for who she is and what and her strength and resiliency is something that I tap into because I believe that's who I am through strength. You know, I'm against all odds. I'm here doing what I love. And for this book, like I said, I agree with Theresa. I didn't want this book just to be African American. I wanted it to be like Black. I wanted it to be more. I wanted to go across the oceans. You know, I do want to see it in those African countries. I do want to see it with everybody who is Black, anybody who identifies with this. That's what I want. You can't. America's great, but you know, there's so much more than this country. You know, there's so much. There's so much to be gained from others, and for others to really be reinforced as much. We can't neglect them. And I just want this book to be generational. I do. It's not good for book sales, but you know, they can buy the second and third edition. I'll do another illustration for the cover if they need. But I do. I want this book to be everlasting. You know, that's what it matters.
It does. I want to just thank you both so much. That was just such a fun conversation. I enjoyed getting to know you and how this book is, and I'm so excited to see this book everywhere as well. I think every school here needs to have this book, and so I'm hoping that I could spread it at least on this end. Thanks for taking your time to be with us. We appreciate you and we love you. Have a great afternoon. I'll see you guys tonight.
Too.
All right, bye.
Bye.